Today I'm going to discuss the evolution of Tony Stark's Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How did Iron Man get from this to this? To this? To this? Anthony Edward Stark was born on the 28th of May 1970 in Manhattan, New York, to parents Howard and Maria Stark. His father Howard was largely absent in Tony's life due to his work on the Manhattan Project and Project Rebirth, where he was able to replicate the super soldier serum from one of 12 samples of blood from Captain America.
He was cold, he was calculating, he never told me he loved me, he never even told me he liked me.
Tony grew up being looked after, largely by Edwin Jarvis, a British butler who was hired by his father Howard. Tony was a genius who built his first circuit board at age 4, at age 6 his first engine, and won a prize for building this robot at age 16. However, at age 21, Tony lost his mother and father to what he thought was a tragic car accident on the 6th of December 1991. However, as we know, this turned out to be an assassination by the Winter Soldier, a brainwashed Bucky Barnes. This event haunted him all his life, and he regretted not having tried harder to have a better relationship with his parents, and especially had regrets around his relationship with his father Howard. Tony was CEO of Stark Industries from age 21. At age 38, Stark Industries was a heavy weapons manufacturer who sold weapons to the United States military.
Yeah, peace. I love peace. I'll be out of a job with peace.
So Tony seemingly was a good boy growing up and obviously a genius. However, as he grew older, he became a womanizer, loved fast cars, and generally lived a fast life, if you know what I mean.
You don't respect yourself, so I know you don't respect me.
I respect
I'm just
you.
your babysitter, and so, you know, when you need your diaper change, thank you. Let me know, and I'll get you a bottle.
Does anyone else prefer Terrence Howard as roadie? But during this time, the best thing Tony did was hire a loyal personal assistant, Virginia Pepper Potts.
I do anything and everything that Mr. Stark requires, including occasionally taking out the trash. Will that be all?
So anyway, Tony is kidnapped by the 10 Rings who attacked his convoy. Tony is hit with shrapnel, which was only kept out of his heart by an electromagnet put into his body by Afghan scientist Ho Henson, who had also been captured by the terrorist organization. Tony had met Ho in Bern in 1999.
Stark. Oh, Jensen.
Oh, I finally met a man called Hope.
But Stark was so drunk that he couldn't even remember the encounter years later. The 10 Rings try to force Tony to make the Jericho missiles for them, but instead he creates a miniaturized arc reactor and, of course, the incredible Mark I Iron Man suit.
So you're a man who has everything. And nothing.
And it's really in this movie where Tony has the biggest change. He sees the 10 Rings have his weapons, which were sold to them by Obadiah Stane. He sees the pain and suffering that his weapons cause, and he's inspired by the sacrifice of Jensen.
Thank you for saving me.
Don't waste your life.
Tony changes the focus of Stark Industries to creating clean energy and stops all arms manufacturing. He also decides to perfect his Iron Man suit. Tony also meets a few new friends along the way, most notably Agent Phil Coulson, and of course, Nick Fury. So anyway, at the end of Iron Man, Tony reveals to the world that he is Iron Man. And from there, after all the progress he made in the first film, you would have thought that he would just have continued to progress. But that's not Tony Stark, and that wasn't the case here. In the 2 years that followed, Tony continued to battle his demons. He backslid to his partying ways, and things actually got worse than before. Although Tony had done a couple great acts of heroism, he hadn't changed as a person. He hadn't changed who he was, and actually became even more irresponsible and arrogant than ever. Despite his natural inclination to be irresponsible, his unresolved relationship with his father was also the cause of him creating havoc in his life. Oh yeah, and the palladium which powers the arc reactor in his chest was also killing him, making this whole devil-may-care attitude even worse.
Got any other bad ideas?
He even chose to expose himself to his enemies by driving one of his own race cars. But this decision, of course, gave us one of the best action sequences in the MCU. And how about that suitcase armor? Man, that was awesome. Tony's irresponsible actions came to a climax at his 40th birthday party. Oh, I forgot to mention, Tony also promoted Pepper to CEO and hired Natalie Rushman, who turned out to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Black Widow Natasha Romanoff.
I gotta say it's hard to get a read on you. Where are you from?
Legal?
Fury comes in the aftermath of the party and gives Tony some priceless information on his father.
What is and always will be my greatest creation is you.
And this was really a turning point for Tony Stark. He also figures out the formula which his father left him to create a new element, or rather rediscover an element which allows him to produce 100% clean energy and to power his suit. He understands more about where he came from, which allows him to move forward with his future. Oh, and him and Pepper finally get together, which leads us on to the Avengers, where Tony is able to rise to the occasion. He has a good relationship with Pepper and is able to seemingly overcome many of his issues, and is able to contribute massively to the team that is the Avengers. And besides contributing to the team, oh man, did Tony give a lot of quips.
Make your moves, reindeer games.
What's your thing, Pilates?
You might have missed a couple things, you know. Doing time as a capsicle.
Shakespeare in the Park?
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
No hard feelings, Point Break. You got a mean swing.
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. All performance issues, you know, it's not uncommon. 1 out of 5.
You ever tried shawarma? There's a shawarma joint about 2 blocks from here. I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
And even though he's volatile, self-obsessed, and doesn't play well with others, especially with Captain America,
Following's not really my style.
And you're all about style, aren't you?
a massive turning point for Tony happened after Loki killed his friend Phil Coulson. And Tony played a big part in uniting the Avengers and bringing them together. And one of the most memorable scenes is when he stalled Loki long enough to launch the Mark 7 armor and one up his suitcase armor suit up scene.
Because if we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
But even though Tony was self-obsessed, he selflessly sacrifices himself to save New York. With the Avengers outnumbered, Gideon Malik of the World Security Council orders a nuclear missile strike on downtown New York. Tony takes this as an opportunity to take the nuclear missile through the portal and deliver a killing blow to the Jotauri Command Center. And it was that event that left Tony disturbed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Tony struggled to sleep, had nightmares, and he threw himself into his work. He was able to largely learn to deal with his PTSD over the course of Iron Man 3, but Tony was still very much the same person in Iron Man 3 as in Avengers, part of course from the PTSD. One good thing was able to come of Tony's lack of sleep, and that was that the Iron Man suit jumped all the way to Mark 42. It could be piloted remotely and called from anywhere.
Honestly, I hate working here. They are so weird.
He of course is able to have an operation where the arc reactor is removed from his body altogether. Once all the shrapnel was removed, Tony becomes tired of the superheroing business as it were and temporarily retires at the end of Iron Man 3. After the Avengers attack a Hydra base in Age of Ultron, Stark is given a vision of the future through the power of the Mind Stone from Wanda Maximoff. Captain America when dying says, "You could have saved us. Why didn't you do more?" In an attempt to do more, he builds the Iron Legion to try and pretty much automate the Avengers, I guess, and that leads him inadvertently to creating the villain Ultron, and later of course the hero Vision. And that's the thing with Tony, he's continually making mistakes and having to fix them, going through the same cycle over and over. Captain America Civil War sees Tony learn the truth of what really happened to his parents, in that a brainwashed Bucky killed them, and it really just leaves him at odds with Cap. And being at odds with Cap had always been simmering, as they always seem to be on the different side of things, right back to when they first met in Avengers 1. We also see in Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming that Tony has become more of a father figure to Peter Parker, and he finally reconciles with Pepper Potts, resulting in them getting engaged. Finally, after 9 years. And that of course leads us to Avengers Infinity War, where Tony loses Peter in the snap. In the most heart-wrenching of scenes, Tony was stabbed by Thanos on Titan and is left on Titan alone with Nebula. We had never seen Tony so devastated, and clearly now, after 10 years of being a hero, will face his darkest hour and his greatest trials. And that's the thing with Tony. Even with his natural inclination of being selfish, he truly cares for others, immediately throwing himself into harm's way trying to save people in the Battle of Greenwich Village, and going into space to one of Saturn's moons, Titan, again putting himself on a one-way trip to save others, even without knowing if he will see his loved ones again. He desperately tries to keep his loved ones out of harm's way, and he even tried to get Peter not to come on Ebony Maw's ship, and decided the best thing to do was to take the fight to Thanos and Titan and keep it away from Earth. And I have no doubt that Tony will stop at nothing to defeat Thanos. And as he said to Loki,
There is no version of this where you come out on top, but it's all on you. Because if we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
so what's in the future for Tony in Avengers 4 and beyond? Well, I would say more of the same. For sure, we're going to see Tony have to reconcile with Cap and join forces, and perhaps make unexpected alliances to change what has happened. But that's nothing new for Tony. He's always going to be making mistakes and chasing friends away, making new enemies. But despite Tony naturally being irresponsible, selfish, and flawed, he doesn't allow those faults to define him, to drag him down. Yes, he's failed, and he continues to fail, but one of the things that you can be sure of is that he will always get back up. And at his core, he's a good man, a hero, despite his weaknesses. Tony is an example of never giving up, of never allowing our failures to define us. So how has the journey of Tony Stark affected you? Have you enjoyed the evolution of Tony Stark? Are there other characters who have evolved more in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you'd like to see discussed? Let's discuss in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and then share it. And please subscribe to the channel and enable notifications to make sure that you don't miss out on any crafty media content. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers for now.
Batman is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.